Welcome to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer, a show full of tips and practical strategies to repair, rebuild, and strengthen your relationship. If you are currently stuck wondering if your marriage can be saved, or you know you want to save it but don't know how to go about changing it, this show is for you. And now here is your host, Nicola Beer, who specializes in a proven 10-step program to help couples increase the love, passion, and happiness in their marriage in 30 days or less, guaranteed.
Hi and welcome. This is Nicola Beer and I'm so excited that you are here with me listening to such an important topic, and we're talking about depression. We're talking about, is your partner depressed or have they lost interest in the relationship? Is it depression that's killing your relationship, or is it a sign that they no longer love you? This is something that comes up almost weekly in the one-to-one sessions that I have with men and women all over the world to win back their partner's love, win back their partner's attention, affection, and to stop the marriage ending. And it can be really difficult. They said to me, Nicola, do you think my partner's depressed? And we go through the symptoms of depression, we go through the symptoms that their partner is displaying, and then we look at ways to help them. If from what they're sharing sounds like, yes, they are going through depression, then there's certain things that you can do. And obviously, I can't cover them all here because it's very individual what to do when someone's acting in a certain way and how to help them cope with it, how to help them get help, how to help them see the brighter side of life. There are some things to look out for. There are some things that I can share with you today, which I really hope is going to be helpful for you. Because depression can have a devastating effect on close relationships. Sometimes depressed people blame themselves for their pain, and sometimes they blame their partners. It's baffling and painful to see them turn into closed, cold, or accusing partners. They may be so different at times that you question, do you even know them anymore? Some men and women that I help to turn this around will say to me that living with their depressed husband or wife is like living with a stranger. And that's after years and years of marriage. After years, affection and intimacy can also be completely gone, and it can be confusing, especially if they say that they don't love you anymore, or sometimes it can be even worse than that. Sometimes they can say, I've never loved you. I've never felt like this, because maybe in their world, all they can see is darkness. All they can muster up is negative memories. And it's hard. It's really difficult. When I've worked with couples, both of them to save the relationship, because most of the work I do actually is just with one person. But when I do work with both, sometimes the memories of events are so different. And that can be really hard as well. If you remember, for example, your wedding day as being amazing, your honeymoon as being amazing, having children as being the best thing that's ever happened, and then your partner sees all of that as negative, it can be really, depressing, I guess, in itself. It can be very saddening, it can be very hurtful, and it can be very painful. Depressed partners can sometimes ignore things that aren't working in their life and focus the blame for their low mood on you or the relationship, where they hope that if they end the relationship, they will find happiness. And these beliefs can often cause a depressed person to avoid seeking treatment or talking to someone that they trust, as they have associated their unhappiness to being attached to the other person. So they've sort of said in their head, it's all coming from the relationship. And what do you do in that situation? It can be really tough to know how to go through that. And the difficulty is that sometimes it is true. If men and women have been in a relationship where they have been not expressing their true self, where they've been repressing parts of their personality, hiding parts of their personality for a long time, or if they feel that they're being controlled, again, not being themselves in the relationship, not being accepted, not being allowed to be who they are, And that can be because a person doesn't let them, and it also can be because of their own limitations. They don't feel that they are allowed to be themselves, or they've hidden themselves out of habit. They've always had to hide themselves, their real true selves. This can cause depression. So when it comes to depression in a relationship, it's important to work out what is real and what is not. And as hard as it is to be in love with a person who is depressed, what they really do need is your support to help them explore this themselves. So I'm going to share with you a few tips on how to deal with a depressed husband or wife. And the key thing I want to mention is that if there is depression in your relationship, it's time to act now, both for you and for your partner. Waiting increases the chances that your relationship won't last, according to statistics in the US. Depressed couples are over 9 times more likely to divorce. So it's important, if this applies to you, to act. So I'm so pleased that you're already a person that takes action. You're already a person that shows that you care about your relationship, because if you didn't take action and you didn't care about your relationship, then you wouldn't be bothering to listen to this podcast. So this in itself is a great step forward. And from my experience helping thousands of couples now, I believe that the reason that the statistic is so high is because negativity kills relationship. If one person or both people in the marriage have a very pessimistic viewpoint, a very pessimistic, negative energy, it's going to affect everything. Left undressed, eventually it destroys all passion, all closeness, and all communication negativity. Which is why, if depression has crept into your relationship, it's important to take some positive actions. Many fall into the trap of trying to either fight their depressed husbands or wives' feelings, tell them that their feelings are wrong. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are, no one wants to hear that their feelings are wrong. Ever. Because at the end of the day, these are your feelings, and if this is how you feel, this is how you feel. And this is especially true if someone is going through depression. Because if you're going through depression, you get very attached to your feelings. Your feelings become your best friends. You're focusing on your feelings. And so you've got this attachment to these feelings that you're having. And then if someone comes along and tells you that, no, you're wrong, you have a great relationship, you have a great life, you need to be happy, you've got this, you've got that, all that is going to do is anger you, upset you, and push your partner further away. It leads to more isolation and more withdrawal, which inevitably crushes the relationship. Another reason why it's so important to act sooner rather than later is because a non-depressed spouse that lives with a depressed partner runs the risk of getting into depression themselves. And if you're both in depression, it can spiral and it can be very difficult to get out of. I know I've actually been there myself. When I was going through a really difficult time and feeling very depressed, my partner, I realised actually he was really, really depressed. And we were feeding each other, and it really was not helpful. And it's important to remember as well that depression is something that you don't really want to push under the carpet. Any life problems, you don't want to brush them under the carpet, because it's a killer, because it doesn't get better on its own. A lot of people wait and think, well, maybe in time my partner will come round. Maybe in time things will get better. But rarely do things get better with time, because all time does is pass. It's only actions within that time that make a difference. It's only steps that you take. I spend a lot of time going through with people, what are their options? What are the steps that they can take? Another reason that depression is such a high risk for individuals and couples is because it carries a high risk for alcoholism. It carries a high risk for drug abuse, for violence, and it could also lead, inevitably, some tragic cases to suicide. So well done again for paying attention to this and not being someone who's just going to try and hope that things get better by themselves. So here are some steps that are going to help you. The first step and thing you need to be aware of is to not fall into the trap of the blame game. Dealing with a partner's depression can invoke frustration and resentment, especially if you find yourself making excuses for a loved one's social absences or if some household responsibilities aren't being done. Being open to new routines, new ways of relating, and making sure that you also look after your own needs and take care of yourself is vital. It's vital so that you're not blaming each other. Because if you start to focus all of your attention on your partner, if you end up doing everything for them, and you are the one that's driving the relationship, driving their life, doing everything for a long period of time, resentment may build inside you. If you're happy doing all of that and you feel good inside doing that, that's absolutely fine, and that's a different case. But if you're feeling this is unfair, I'm frustrated, then you need to set a clear boundary on what you're happy to do and what you're not happy to do. In fact, often it's better to do a little bit less and not resent your partner than it is to be doing everything and feeling angry or cheated or like life is unfair all the time. The second thing is to really listen and be compassionate. So showing compassion. Encourage a distressed spouse to talk about what they are feeling, what they are going through. And listen without passing judgment. Now this is difficult. If someone is in a bad depression, you might hear things that could really freak you out. For example, a depressed spouse might question their love for you or an interest in staying together. They may say that they feel alone or like they have nothing to live for or they regret their decisions in life. And where possible, do not get stuck into making it about you. You want to avoid that at all costs. Or to get stuck into relationship questions if one or both of you can only see negatives at that point. It's better to listen wholeheartedly and agree to leave the marriage discussion for another time, saying instead something that they will probably really want to hear, and that's just, let's take it a day at a time, a week at a time. We don't need to make any big decisions now. Let's not rush into anything. I've listened to you, okay, I understand from what you've shared that it is painful, and repeat back to them what they've been expressing to you to show that you've really listened. You don't want to overwhelm each other, and you do not want to make life-altering decisions because we can't see things clearly when we have that dark cloud over our heads. One of the hardest things I had to do was help my sister. Now, I absolutely adore my younger sister. She is 10 years younger than me. And so I just see her as like my little baby, really, my little child. I just love her. And she was living with me for 4 years around the road, not actually in my apartment. And I do 8-hour breakthrough sessions with individuals. So I do an 8-hour day, either online, where we have 2-hour blocks and then a half an hour break, 2-hour blocks. And we literally completely break down someone's depression, clear it out, do all of the healing processes, the coaching, the creating a new life, actions that they're going to do to make them feel better. And then we do some deep meditations to change their feelings and their emotions at the subconscious level. And my sister was really, really struggling. She was feeling really depressed for a long period of time while she was living with me in Dubai. And so I said, look, I will give you one of my 8-hour breakthrough sessions. And the first 2 hours of the breakthrough day is me just listening and allowing someone to talk. And when they're talking, I'm listening for how they're representing their world inside their mind. I'm listening to their language patterns. I'm listening to their limiting beliefs. I'm listening to these emotions that they're having and they're struggling with. So I just listen and ask questions. And it was so difficult to hear my sister saying that she feels about ending her own life, that she sometimes feels what's the point, that she sometimes feels when she's walking down the road, what if I just jumped under that car? And obviously I'd wanted to go, I can't believe you feel like that, I'm so sorry. And I just had to really step back. It's not about me. I need to listen. I need to show her and allow her to listen. This is her world right now. This is how dark her world has become. And from stepping back and from listening compassionately, allowing her to share how she was thinking and feeling, then I was able to help her. Then I was able to say, right, okay, here are some ideas. Here are some ideas of some actions we can take. And really, she was like that in her life because she lacked a purpose, a passion. So the second half, we focused on finding her a life purpose, a life passion, reconnecting to her to a path that she has always wanted to go on, but she felt that she wasn't good enough to do that. And literally it changed everything, and she was amazing after. But yeah, we have to listen, and it's really hard because we feel like, well, how come you felt like this for a long time and I didn't know? How come you didn't share this with me? This can be us making it about us. And we really need to make sure that, no, it's not about me, and I'm just going to listen and maybe even make notes. Do you mind if I write some things down just so I can get them clear? And you'll give that person a gift, because it really does work, sharing and being able to talk through these thoughts, because it really helps someone that's depressed. Because if they don't feel that they can express their thoughts and feelings to someone, these thoughts and feelings are going to go round and round and round and round in their head, and it makes them harder to free themselves from them. The next thing that you probably could do if it's getting serious is to get a diagnosis together. Dozens of health conditions can trigger the same symptoms as depression, so there could be something else that's causing your partner's depression. And ask your spouse if it's okay for you to attend the evaluation, because in most cases, when someone is down or low, they cannot express what's going on properly. The illness may prevent a depressed person from recognizing they need help or seeking it out, or they may have a lot of fear. They may have fear that a partner is going to be angry at the cost of depression support, or they might fear that people won't understand them, or a whole host of other reasons. So having you there can be really helpful for someone. As a grief and loss recovery specialist, I was amazed at how similar the symptoms of depression are to the symptoms of the natural and normal process of grief and losing something. A lot of people believe they have depression when in reality what they are experiencing is grief, be it from a loss of a loved one, a loss of a job, financial loss, health loss, loss of trust, loss of faith, and even losses of giving up things that are harmful, like giving up alcohol, giving up an affair partner, giving up overeating. I work with a lot of people at the moment who want to break free from compulsive eating, binge eating, bulimia, and restrictive eating, like not eating. And when I'm helping them through their eating patterns, and when they change them, they can feel really depressed, because all of a sudden they have these emotions that they are no longer treating with food. And this is something I'm passionate about, because my story with food is a 25-year-long one until I finally broke free from using food, either restricting food, controlling food, overeating, to manage my emotions. So sometimes it can be when they've given up something that people get depressed. And the last thing I want to mention is to be patient with the treatment process. If they decide to go down the medication route, it's really important to be patient. Whilst talking can very quickly lighten someone's load and make them feel better within a few sessions, medical intervention and medication for depression can involve a trial and error period. It can involve a lot of testing. when using depression drugs. Things that work really, really well for some people can be a disaster for other people. Sometimes tablets can make no difference. Sometimes tablets can really slow people down and they need to get used to that. So it's really important that you are patient with each other, that you don't have high expectations that as soon as you get the drug you're going to feel amazing, and that you keep in touch as much as possible with the person that subscribed the drugs to you. If they're not working, they need to know how you're feeling and what's going on. So it's really important to really make sure that you're getting the most out of that relationship with the person that's subscribed medication. The good news is that depression can be lifted with the right support. So if the support at any point does not feel right, then change it. You as a depressed person, or you as the partner helping the depressed person, need to feel good about the support that you're getting. Otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have a good relationship with the person that's supporting you. If you have a lack of trust in the person that's supporting you, if there's not a good fit, if you feel like you're being judged or they don't understand, it's often detrimental to the healing process. So make sure you keep shopping around until you get the support and find someone that you feel comfortable with. So I mentioned that losses can trigger the feeling of depression, whether it's death of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a friendship, all major changes. Moving country can bring grief. And with these losses, it's often easier to identify, okay, this is creating the mood, this is creating the mood. Transitions can cause a lot of depression, and transitions are harder to pinpoint, especially if the transition is over a long period of time. This can include children's graduations, when they leave the home, empty nest, when someone gets a new job, when someone moves country or moves house, when you get married, when someone has a new baby, or in retirement. All these major transitions, these major life transitions, can cause the onset of depression. And then there's conflict in relationships. Is your loved one having problems with people at work, with their friends, with their partners, with their parents, with their in-laws, with any children that you have? And you, I mentioned partners, what about with you? Unresolved relationship problems can often trigger depressive episodes, especially if that person is not the kind of person that expresses their emotions, if they keep them hidden in, if they're more of a silent treatment kind of person. They may get very depressed if their relationships aren't working, but because they feel helpless to change them, because they don't have the experience and perhaps the skills to say what needs to be said to repair and rechange the relationship. What's important to remember is that depression is a struggle, and the depressed person may feel utterly overwhelmed and incapable of regulating themselves when it comes to reacting in the relationship, or they may feel that they just can't cope with the relationship. They may be often so consumed with their struggles that they can't handle any extra demands. And when you start to put demands on them in the relationship, when you start to say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, they can actually just see that it's easier to end it rather than deal with things, because it can seem like such a huge weight on their shoulders. So there's two essential things to remember when dealing with depression in a relationship. One is always show compassion, because the depressed person does not want to feel depressed. No one wants to feel depressed. And the second thing that you need to remember is not to neglect yourself, because two depressed people is going to make things worse. Or one depressed person and one resentful person is not going to help. As I mentioned, I go through negativity, carrying negativity, a huge amount in all of the relationship work that I do. So it's important to ask yourself, is this going to hurt your relationship? So setting healthy boundaries for yourself and making sure you get time to relax and unwind when things get tough are really important. I want you to know that there is hope. Definitely. I've helped many couples through this situation, and I've helped many men and women who sign up to work with me on their own to save their relationship or to change their relationship or to help their partner. And it really works. Getting help, talking, finding new ways to relate. If you're feeling stuck, the worst thing you can do is just to keep in that negativity stuck place. So I hope this has been useful to you. If you are considering your support options and you'd like to connect with me to start a new path today, then do reach out to me. You can drop me an email at nb@nicolabeer.com. You can visit my website, nicolabeer.com, and book a free session with me directly on my website. I'll put the link with this episode. Or you can email me and just ask me a question. I'd be happy to answer if I can. From my heart to yours, have a wonderful week ahead and looking forward to being with you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer. To book your free Save My Marriage consultation, please visit www.savemymarriageprogram.com/consult. And if you've enjoyed this episode, Nicola would really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and review on whatever app you're listening through, so the show stays visible, allowing more people to get the support they need to increase their love, passion, and happiness.